Okay, well, thank you for joining. It's basically a information session about Capstone, and this is the plan for today. We first want to tell you about an exciting new option that we will be piloting in the fall and spring. So when most of you will be doing Capstone, so will be a pilot program associated with industry clinic Capstone option. We have two industry sponsors that will be taking part in that pilot, L3 Harris and Idaho National Labs. And we expect, Osama Hadaden from L3 Harris is already here, and we do expect someone from INL to also join us to provide pitches for their projects. And then after that, we will Professor Saint Germain will provide more general capstone information, and we'll stick around for Q&A if there are any. All right, so let me go to the industry clinic capstone straight away. So as you can imagine, the idea is basically that we would, and really here you as a capstone team would partner with an industry sponsor around your capstone project. And so the industry partner will provide an initial idea for the capstone project, and that's why we asked them to be here today to provide pitches for those projects. They will support the project financially. They will also provide a mentor from their organization to work with the capstone team. And then they will work with the team to develop the idea, and they will provide access to data and tools and resources in support of the project. So that's kind of, if you think of this from the industry partner perspective. From the capstone team perspective, we think this is really a pretty unique opportunity for the teams who want to take part in that, because you'll gain industry exposure, hopefully just before you enter the job market. And you'll be working with industry professionals on a real problem, right? I mean, this folks come to this with their understanding of what's going on in industry, and that's how they create these project ideas. Each team member will receive a $1,000 scholarship, and each team will also be receiving or will be able to take on expenses up to $750 related to their project. And then the School of Computing will be providing a graduate student mentor to work with these teams. So other than that, the industry clinic capstone is really, in terms of objectives, very much like the regular capstone. There is one specific other difference that I just want to point out to you, and this is that in your normal capstone, the intellectual property that you generate during that project is yours. In the case of the industry clinic capstone projects, the intellectual property will be owned by the sponsor that is involved with that. So that's kind of the overview. A little bit of details. Beyond that, I already said we have these two industry partners who are working with us on this first go around. We asked them to specifically scope their projects to accommodate at least 3 team members. And again, I want to emphasize that the idea here is not that you're going to come in and just execute on a project that the sponsors have already figured out, very much like in the regular capstone, for like a better terminology. You will have to flesh that out. In this case, however, you will be doing it in collaboration with the sponsor. So in terms of process, you need to apply for this. There's a URL. I will post these in the chat momentarily. You'll have to apply by essentially next Friday. And you will need to be logged into your Google account with your gcloud.utah.edu identity to do that. It's pretty straightforward. There's like 5 questions. And then basically Professor Saint-Germain and I will look through those applications, and we will select teams, and the target to do that is by mid-May. And then we will aim to have a sort of a kickoff meeting with the team and the sponsor and the Skill of Computing graduate student mentor by the end of May. So that's kind of the timeline we have in mind. That's pretty much all I have. So I'm happy to entertain questions about this so far, if there are any questions. Okay, if anyone did ask a question, you probably muted because we didn't hear anything. Maybe there weren't any questions, in which case we'll go ahead and Osama, if you can go ahead and share your screen and start with your pitch, please. There was one question here, will I be sharing the slides? Yes, I will be sharing the slides. The slides are also linked off of the application link that I'll send with you. So they're sort of mutually linked, but I'll send links to both of them. Okay, Sama, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for attending this session. This is an exciting time to be starting this project. And thanks for inviting me to submit our project as well. It's the topic, and we will discuss, but I wanted to make just a few points clear. Like Koba said, I mean, we're sort of defining the project. So I give some information about it, but it is up to us as a team working together on the project to kind of select tools and select the approach and methodology. Don't think about it as a test. I mean, I'm not giving you an assignment and you go off and do it. This is like a real project. We're trying to do it together and to get a successful outcome out of it. But also part of the motivation is I do want you to enjoy the project, and I want you to actually learn from it. And hopefully you enjoy working with us, that you decide to come and work for L3. I mean, this is really, there are a lot of factors that play. I mean, just don't take it as a test where you go off and try to do it on your own. It's a team project. But as part of the learning experience, you get to split it up among the team members and reach out to us for help. I may have answers and I may not have answers for the questions you may ask. So that's part of the effort that we will explore together. We may have to start looking for the right answers when we need to. So let me dive in. And I have, I think, 10 minutes, right?
Yes. Okay. Plus time for questions. So, and since we only have the 2 pitches, we're not super tight on time. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Great. So the topic is cyber security or cyber threat detection using knowledge graphs and machine learning. These are 2 topics that are of interest. One, knowledge graphs, and the second is machine learning. But we are specifically applying it to a domain, which is the cybersecurity domain. I will talk a little bit about L3, just to kind of tell you who we are and why we're interested in this. And then I will jump and discuss the project. We are, L3 Harris is global. Our headquarters right now is hopefully for a while, in Melbourne, Florida, not Australia. But we have a large division in Salt Lake City, and that is focused on communication systems. Let me see, we are at 50,000 employees. The one thing to note is that we're engineering heavy, about, I don't know, 25,000 of those, maybe 20,000 of those are really engineers with engineering focus. So that's always exciting because we do new things, and we have many locations around the world. You could, if you don't want to work in Salt Lake City and want to work for Thesis in Florida, that's, we have spots there too. Let me see, and I'll move forward. Like I said, we are part of a communication system segment, which has mostly focused on communications for either defense, military, governments, as well as public safety and so on. We also have a sector for night vision. Our sector, the broadband communication systems that I mentioned, is in Salt Lake City. We do a lot of wireless communication systems for large platforms like ships, planes, Humvees, and so on. And we are recognized in communication systems, in wireless communication systems, across the country. We have about 3,600 employees. 45% of those are engineers. And we do have engineers in actually manufacturing as well. So it is heavy engineering. And if you have more questions on this, let me know. I can talk, forever about it. The main thing that it's the coming slide. Like I said, we're engineering heavy. Our engineering organization, the Salt Lake City only engineering organization, is something like 1,200 engineers. We have, reporting to our Salt Lake City division, we have something like a couple, maybe 150 engineers outside Salt Lake City. Some of them are in Florida, others are in San Diego. We have a small group in San Diego that we work with closely. We are sort of diverse groups. Our teams consist of, when you put a team together to solve a project, they're really software engineers, system engineers, electrical engineers, just from across, mechanical engineers. They come together to solve a problem. Our software, you're interested in software engineering, we have something like maybe 300 software engineers, working in the Salt Lake City, San Diego area. And so but there are, we do all sorts of things. And there are like sort of software engineers for embedded, processors and on electronics. They work closely with electronics and circuit cards. Let me see if you have questions. I think there are. There are no questions on the chat, so I'm just going to move on to the next slide. And that takes me to the project, but I wanted to, I don't have a lot of slides talking about the project. And as we pick the team and narrow it down, we can discuss it in depth. But for now, I just want to motivate the problem, really like wireless and wired systems, which is of interest to us because our customers have all of the wired, wireless systems, sort of planes flying all over, but they're really also connected to infrastructures that are wired and wireless, commercial and governments and so on. They're all interconnected, and that's what it may be exciting. And I'm working from home. The reason I can work from home is I have a communication. I'm networked to my company, and I can do a lot of things. So it's really exciting, and that's what I meant by, I can work from home. I'm happy about that. But we're all vulnerable to cyber attacks. And my company and other companies spend a lot of time and money thinking about cyber defenses. How do I protect my network from attacks? You know, one of the difference that's happening right now is that everything is interconnected. I mean, a lot of devices, you know, small devices. We talk about smart homes. We talk about connected cars. We talk about, so it's not just the workplace. It's everything you have. Every device is an entry point to a network that reaches across the globe. So that's sort of a, yeah, it's exciting, it's an opportunity, but it is vulnerable. All of these are access points for threats. So that increased connectivity and then the diversity of devices makes it even more challenging for a cyber defense. So if you're trying to build a cybersecurity system, you're not worried about one type of device and one type of firewall or protection mechanism. You have various types, and that's what I bring up. The diversity of solutions is increasing, but the amount of network traffic and the amount of data available that you need to harvest and look through is also has increased, and it's diverse type of data. You know, so you want to store that data, you want to store information about, you know, devices and about your network, but that type of data is no longer uniform or structured. It's not one type of data. It's you may have text, you may have text, you may have a lot of information that you want to collect in a database. And there is an important factor that also that needs to be addressed is because of these entities are networked, the relationship between the entities is important. So you want to carry that information and you want to carry all the attributes that come with these entities, you know. And that brings me to the solution and the project. And one way of addressing this sort of diverse type of data is in using knowledge graphs. Knowledge graphs is a mechanism to actually store. You can think of knowledge graph databases where you're not storing data as matrices, but you're storing data as entities in graphs, and you're also storing the relationships between the different entities, you know. So the idea for cybersecurity knowledge graph is that building a knowledge graph with sort of a cybersecurity domain. So we bring in expertise about cybersecurity. We populate a knowledge graph with all the information that we have, you know, that we can collect. And then we want, there are tools right now in the industry that kind of go through a knowledge graph and clean it up. You know, you want your data to be consistent. You want to remove any ambiguities, and you want to remove any duplications, and you want to connect entities that do have relationships. So there are tools that do that for us. Our idea is the goal is to start simple. I mean, this is, I understand it's a project, it's a school project, so I'm not trying to make millions of entities captured, but the concept is still the same. We want to define what a knowledge graph structure looks like, or an ontology, and then populated with data that generally right now may be siloed. And siloed, I don't know if you've heard the term, it's basically designed or put together in without collaboration in separate pieces. But you want to capture all that data in one place, in one repository. And then you wanna use, once you have it captured, you wanna build algorithms that go through and pull in, sort of detect for, you know, in the case of cybersecurity, you wanna detect threats, for example. or you want to identify certain properties or vulnerabilities in a cybersecurity space or domain. Another piece that you could think of is that I may have collected data, information about static data that I have about devices in the field in my network. I collect that data and capture it in a knowledge graph, but there is additional set of data that I can capture about the network, and these are sort of like active or continuous data, and that's what I show in this network traffic monitor. You may be monitoring the network, your own network, and feeding that data into the knowledge graph. So updating the knowledge graph as you're doing the search. And then when you're doing the search, you're basically either, and we want to define this. I don't want to make it difficult. So I kind of made it like, it could be that I'm searching for a threat, for a potential outlier maybe. So I know the normal behavior of my network, and then suddenly it's behaving differently. That may be as like a signal or an indication of something is wrong or a threat. And I may expose that to an analyst and say, oh, look, there's something wrong. So that becomes our machine learning algorithm here that explores normal behavior and abnormal behavior, and it'll highlight it to an analyst. You are probably familiar or most likely familiar with something like YouTube or Amazon trying to sell you potato chips or something, but those are they're called recommendation systems. A recommendation system uses knowledge graphs. The latest is that they're using knowledge graphs to track users and to track their interests and behaviors, and to find similarities with other users, and then make recommendations based on what other users like and don't like. And this, we could treat it the same way. I mean, I know devices that may behave similarly, and if I know that one has been kind of captured or attacked by a certain threat in a certain way, now this becomes a recommendation. If I see a similar behavior, it becomes a recommendation. You know? That's another sort of, I'm just showing it as another way of thinking about this problem as a recommendation system. But we can focus on just simply looking for outliers. I mean, that's the simplest, in my mind, that's the simplest thing to apply as a machine learning application of a knowledge graph is, you know, I know the normal behavior of my network, and when there is something something different that happens, I'm gonna highlight it as a potential attack. So that's kind of just an overview, but I wanted to bring up the importance of knowledge graphs in your own world and in your studies. I mean, knowledge graphs are used everywhere. You know, in search engines, Google, I think that's the start of knowledge graphs, with Google's looking at their search as relationships between entities, not as an independent search engine on pieces of data. The other piece that we will learn is machine learning applied to knowledge graphs. And that's one popular area or focus algorithm is graph neural networks. So, and that gives me to the project goal. That's the specific goal, is to develop and demonstrate cybersecurity data storage in knowledge graphs and threat analysis, either detection, recommendation, using machine learning over graphs. If you start searching these on Google, you'll find a lot of information. I tried to focus it a little bit on maybe examples with graph neural network and knowledge graph for cybersecurity. Some of the areas that you will see knowledge graphs used in and machine learning applied to knowledge graph is fraud detection, and in a lot of the financial transactions that take place, analyzing and detecting fraud is an active area of research, and knowledge graphs and machine learning applied to knowledge graphs is used there. So this is similar, but it's applied to cybersecurity data. So it's a different domain, but similar application of tools. The from a high-level project tasks, and we can kind of explore these further, but the idea is to go through, collect cybersecurity data, and basically this is not an exhaustive data collection. I mean, this is, we're gonna develop an example experimental setup. We collect example cybersecurity data, maybe about a network from the university. We look at an ontology, and this is really like how you would start defining entities and sub-entities, and sort of the layering in the data that you have, and then you construct a knowledge graph. These three pieces are related to sort of, you can think of yourself as a cybersecurity expert trying to create a knowledge graph database for the cybersecurity. So that's one area of focus. The other area is in networking and network traffic and monitoring a network and updating the knowledge graph. So that's really like, we could define a few parameters that we highlight in what to monitor in a network traffic. We can use existing tools at the university, but it could be frequency of traffic, or it could be IP addresses of where they're coming from. And that just a couple of simple things that we're monitoring in our network. The third piece, or the two items, is to develop the knowledge graph machine learning algorithm to monitor the knowledge graph and run either graph neural network or any machine learning algorithm to detect and make recommendations, or make recommendations. Doesn't have to be. So, as a diagram, I mean, think of these are. This is the first item that is constructing this knowledge graph. So this is the first piece. The second piece is monitoring the network and feeding it into the knowledge graph. The third piece is to develop an algorithm and run it. These, I show them in dotted lines as a continuous process. This happens, early on. We start with data, we collect the data, we put it in a knowledge graph. There are some tools. As we look at this, if we want something to demonstrate, there are tools that help us visualize knowledge graphs. So that kind of becomes kind of fun to look at. And then the other pieces we can start the research in parallel, but these become like the application on the knowledge graph is kind of later, and it continues. We're continuously monitoring the knowledge graph. So that's all I have. I have a set of references. There's a hands-on tutorial and code available on GitHub. You could download it for Graph Neural Network. You could explore that. There are other libraries, and a lot of the effort, I think a lot of the effort is really deciding what tools we're comfortable with, what tools to research, and what tools to use. I did not want to specify a tool based on my limited experience. Some of you may know a lot more in some of these areas and can make a recommendation. Internally, we use Python and DGL, or I'm pointing at that, but that's not it. But DGL is the graph, that one, deep graph library. That's all I have.
Great, thanks, Osama. There was actually a question in the chat which well, let me read the question and then I'll maybe say something. The question is, do you need any kind of clearance to work for L3? And I think maybe the way to answer that would be in general, if you work for L3, and then more specifically for this Capstone project, where I assume that the answer is no. But yeah, if you could answer that maybe in that way, please.
Yeah, no for the project. For L3, it's a mix. You know, security clearance would be great if you can get it. A lot of our engineers don't, not a lot, but maybe more than 50% of the engineers don't have necessarily a clearance. A lot of our projects are sort of, you know, not necessarily open. I mean, I can't tell you the details of those projects for multiple reasons, but they're not necessarily classified and require clearance. But we do always ask that it would be great if you can get it, you know. So that's a long answer, but I hope that answers your question. If you have more on this topic, please let me know.
Any other questions for Osama while we have him?
Any feedback on the project? It sounds exciting. Does it sound something you would want to get into?
Anyone? Anything?
No is okay. I mean.
All right. Well, very good. Thanks, Osama. So yeah, if you can maybe stop sharing, and we have, is it Richa Sabarwal?
Yes, it is Richa Sabarwal.
Richa, thank you very much for joining. Richa is from Idaho National Laboratory, and she will be presenting the pitch for the INL project. Richa, you should be able to share. Are you going to share slides?
Well, I apologize for Ron. He was supposed to be here, but he could not join. So I'm just going to provide a brief synopsis, if that's okay.
Yeah, certainly. Yep. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. So hi, everyone. I'm Richa Sabarwal, and I work with Dr. Ron Fisher in the Infrastructure Assurance and Analysis Division under the National and Homeland Security Directorate at the Idaho National Laboratory. I'm just going to provide you a brief synopsis. So Dr. Fisher is the director of the Infrastructure Assurance and Analysis Division at the INL. And he's also the director for the INL, the Resilience Optimization Center. The Resilience Optimization Center basically tackles infrastructure resilience challenges through applying lab-wide capabilities and expertise in a wide variety of areas, which include, of course, cybersecurity and resilience assessments. So as a part of the project that we are envisioning is that the team will design and develop a user-friendly website or mobile application which will provide the user with their level of personal resilience for cybersecurity. The intention of this tool would be to provide a public service to the community at large and the organizations to analyze their personal resiliency. And in due course, it would be expanded to other areas such as healthcare, the financial industry, etc., as we increase the applicability. So in addition to working on the app, of course, the students will experience working at the Idaho National Lab, which is the Department of Energy's premier nuclear research laboratory, where we have scientists and researchers from all different backgrounds working on a variety of areas, including simulating nuclear reactors, and they work on advanced reactor research, development of hybrid energy systems, integration concepts, and advancing in transportation systems, industrial cybersecurity, wireless 5G device and network security, some of the areas that we have work going on. So this is just a brief synopsis. If you have any questions or comments, then please feel free to reach out to us. I again apologize for not being able to join this call. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Richa. Any questions for the INL project folks, students?
I just have a comment. I did a capstone project at BYU a few years back. I'm a PhD student here now, but it was awesome working with them. They were really helpful and I felt like I learned a lot. So I think it would be a great opportunity to work for them again. It sounds like a cool project and I'll be mentoring these, so cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so thank you, Ryan, for introducing yourself. So Ryan will in fact be the School of Computing graduate student mentor for these projects in the fall and spring. That's why we asked him to join this session today. Any other questions for Richa? Okay, well, very good. Osama, Richa, again, thank you very much for, well, first of all, thank you very much for taking part in our pilot for this industry clinic and for coming out today to pitch your projects. We will be in touch as soon as we have information for you. All right.
Thank you, appreciate it. And if you have more questions later, please send me an email. I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Osama. Oh wait, here's Ron coming in. Hello, Ron, are you there?
I am. Hello.
So we had a bit of a mismatch here in terms of time, and I sent this emergency email to Lori Pincock and Richa Sabarwal just presented very briefly on behalf of INL, but I think if you have anything that you wanted to present, your timing is very good. So if you have anything you want to add, this would be the time to do that.
Okay, and I apologize. My face is red. I'm sweating. I just got off the tennis court. So, you know, a lot of resilience is a buzzword. Everyone talks about it, but it's hard to know what to do, whether it's an organization, personal, cyber, you know, with cybersecurity, how do you be more resilient? How do you be more secure? All of our infrastructure, how does our infrastructure become more resilient? Well, we started a project 2 years ago looking at the personal resiliency side of things, because there's less about it. Like, you know, you see things in the news about, hey, here's the diet of the day, or here's the health tip, and they conflict. And it's the same with emergency management. Hey, what do you do? Well, there's some basic things that we should all be doing, like having a 72-hour supply of food and water, having a family communication plan. There's basic things, and we've started compiling, I don't want to call them top 10 lists, but basically the top things that we should do, and try to build them into an index so that people, if they want to explore how to be more resilient, first off, they can assess where they're at, and then really see how they can do better. And initially I was actually going to write a book about it, and someone said, you know, you're going to have this thick book, no one's going to read it, why don't you do an app? And so that's been my goal. But initially it was just collecting the research, and we started, as I said, more around emergency management side of personal resilience. But I could see if we build this app, I'd probably build in some health dynamics of resilience, also financial, some social elements. So depending on where we go with this will help drive the amount of research we do this summer to help feed the data into the app. But we have the INL Resilience Optimization Center, and we're really just here as a national lab to help the nation. You know, we're a non-for-profit, and so we want to make this available at no cost to try to just help organizations, people be more resilient. So very, very excited about it. I didn't have people like Richa, so it's sat here for a while, but you know, with your help and with internal INL research help, I think we could really have a really good project here. And the students would get exposure to INL. There's a lot of computer science things going on at INL, whether it's modeling and simulation of reactors, building decision and risk tools for looking at infrastructure, creating tools to bring renewables onto the grid, all of these things. And so the team would get exposure to what we do at INL as well.
Great, thanks, Ron.
And if they play tennis, they'd get to play tennis.
Extra benefit.
Yeah.
Any questions for Ron, given the additional information he provided students? Okay, very good. I think Jim, you're probably up next then. Thank you, Ron.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. So there was some questions about General Capstone, and I was going to go over some brief items, and then we would talk about or take those questions and answer them in more detail. So some things to know about Capstone is that they're, prereqs. You're going to build a team. You have an idea. I'll give you a timeline, and then there'll be a public demo day where you just show off everything. So let's briefly talk about these. Just to make sure, you should all be graduating next spring. That's the idea behind Capstone. It's senior Capstone. It is the last thing you do over your final senior year. And you should have most of your CS work out of the way. Only 4 CS electives or required courses should be left, not counting, of course, the Capstone itself. We can talk about prereqs later, but just be aware that we expect you to be a senior and graduating to do senior Capstone. The teams. So teams usually are 4 members, occasionally 5, occasionally 3, but we try to focus on 4. And we will help you find those team members. Much of CS 4000, the first couple of weeks is about introducing yourself and finding people with the same skill or with complementary skills and expectations as you. But you are welcome to come into Capstone with people that you would like to work with. And then if there's a good match, you can work with those people. One thing to note as you build your team is you want to set the same expectations that you have complementary skills, that the time you have available is the same. We want to make sure that like one person isn't able to spend 20 hours a week and another person only 2 hours a week, right? We try to balance those things out. The ideas, so you've just heard the industry clinic ideas. These will be supported directly by industry with funding and expertise. We will also have other industry or faculty sort of one-off ideas where people will say, hey, wouldn't it be neat if you did this? And then you can, sometimes get a lot of support from those people. Sometimes they just give you the idea and you run with it. So that's one source of ideas. There are also student pre-ideas. And so if you've long wanted to build something over the semester, if you've wanted over a year, if you've had a pet project that you'd like to do, some great idea, you can bring that and propose it and try to get a couple students on board with you and then build that. Or you can, during the first couple of weeks of Capstone, brainstorm ideas of things that you think would be neat and generate ideas at that point. But over the summer, feel free to think about ideas that you would like to build if you don't end up signing up for the industry clinic. The timeline. So CS 4000 is a 1 semester. The first couple of weeks is team building. The next couple, like 4 weeks, is requirements analysis, technology, UI, UX design. Next year, I'm toying with this idea that we'll actually have a hackathon at the beginning of the prototyping phase where we all meet together over a Saturday or something and really dive into things, but that's tentative. We'll talk about that during 4000. And then CS 4500, the next semester during the spring, you have 3 4-week periods where you do an alpha, beta, and final release. So that's what you're looking for in the timeline of those courses. Finally, we have a public demo day, and demo day is really exciting. It's like a trade show. This year it'll be over Zoom, which is sort of a bummer, but next year it should be in the Warnock Gallery. We'll have tables, we'll have posters, we'll have monitors and computers. It should be really exciting. We invite outside reviewers. We have faculty members, we have industry leaders, we have even students come in and they walk around and talk to you about your projects. It's open to the public, so you can invite your friends, your parents, your all the people to come see what you've done and really sort of celebrate your ability to create cool software. For your information, this year, next Wednesday, the 28th, from 1:30 to 4:30 will be the demo day over Zoom. And you are welcome to come and attend that so you can get a sense of what some of the teams did this year, help set the context for next year. We'll send out an email with information about the demo day through the advisors early next week, so you'll know how to get to that. Okay, so congratulations. Being a junior in the CS department is a great accomplishment, and next year you get to do something, I hope, that's really exciting, that's fun, that you get to build on all the things that you've learned from all the courses that you have worked through, and have this fantastic senior experience where you get to really, show off. So that's what we're looking for. If you have questions, we're going to take them now. Otherwise, feel free to email me, and I will answer them as time arises. And also, I will be teaching CS 4000 next semester, so I will be meeting with you many times over the following year. Okay, so questions. One was the discussion of the research option, so a thesis capstone. So what I've been talking about is the Capstone project, a software engineering development project. And if you're interested in a thesis, if you want to do some research with a faculty member, you should be reaching out to faculty members who you've met through your courses or through other activities and talking to them about what projects they have and working with them. You should also go to the Canvas page for the research thesis and read the fact there. And I believe you'll speak with Professor Tom Henderson once you have identified who you want to work with. So that would be the thesis option. Okay, so questions, feel free to speak up or put them through the chat and we can talk about that. So Alec asked about the Canvas page for the thesis option. If you go to the handbook, the CS webpage, handbook.cs.utah.edu, and just search for thesis. There, Kaylee has put it in the chat for you.
I have a question about so for the thesis option, if you're doing like a BS MS, they talk about extending a BS thesis into an MS thesis. If one were to do a project option in their bachelor's, could you extend that project for a BS project, or is that only for research that's a suggested option?
I suppose it depends on who you're, so as a master's student, you have to put together a group of faculty that are going to work with you. And so whoever is the chair of that committee would have to agree on the project. But if they thought that your bachelor's project was something that you could keep going on, I don't see a problem with it. But it, again, would be up to the faculty member who's in charge of your thesis committee or project committee.
I can maybe put in a plug. I'm gonna, in the industry forum class on Friday, I'm gonna give a talk that I stole from Professor John Regier a while ago on whether a graduate degree is the right path for you. So if any of you are interested in that, let me know, and I'd be happy for you to join the class even if you're not officially signed up. And I will actually touch on all the MS options. There's a coursework only, project, thesis, and then there's actually another one with the business school, which is very rarely used. But yeah, so if you're interested in that, join the class on Friday.
How do I join the class? Should I just email you and we can talk about it?
Yep, that would be fine.
Other questions about Capstone, preparing for Capstone, fears of Capstone, excitement for Capstone?
I'll just add really quick for just a comment. For those of you that want to work in the industry later and stuff, you might want to consider these industry capstone options, the Idaho National Labs and L3 Harris. Those are both big companies that are well known. And as you guys already know from applying to internships and stuff, it really helps to have experience on your resume. And I was able to put that on my resume and it really helped. So you can consider that when you're considering what you want to do for your project, that if you go work for L3 or INL, you can put that on your resume and it will stand out if you can word it well and stuff.
There was a question in the a question which was, do you stay with your same team for the entire year? And the answer is yes. We do a lot of work to try to match teammates at the beginning, where we match expectations. You have to do oral presentations, you have to create a resume, you have to show how much time and commitment you have. And so we try to work very hard to match teams together. And we tell you as students that it's very important that you vet your teammates, that you interview them, that you talk with them, and that you try to build the best possible team, because you will be working with them for the entire year. That being said, in the very, very, very rare case where something goes totally wrong, a team can fire you. Now, hopefully that will not happen, but if you get fired from your team, you can, well, we try not to have that happen and it doesn't happen very often, but if that happens, then you'd have to look for either another team or restart Capstone. So let's not have that happen.
So there's a question about whether the slides and the Zoom session recording will be available. I guess, Jim, you can make the slides available and we will figure out the way to make I'm not sure exactly where we would post the recording, but I guess we can work something out, Jim.
Yeah. I am very much looking forward to not doing this by Zoom next year. Have this big black wall of Zoom and silence. Comments, questions?
You know, I was part of the electrical engineering clinic program with, you know, sort of with industry, and the sort of the event that they used to have at the end of the year was always exciting. You know, you know, all the students presenting the projects. It becomes like a conference, you know. So I really enjoyed that, and I think the students enjoyed it quite a bit. And there's usually food and snacks. So yeah, you have to be in person, you know. Otherwise, you know, how are you going to get the food and drinks, you know?
So there's a question about what is the structure of the course. And yes, once the teams are formed and the project gets going, you will have weekly meetings where you will, like, for 20 to 30 minutes, meet with a faculty member about what's going on, how are your task management tools working, how is your Git repository going, how are the requirements analysis coming, what roadblocks are you running into. So usually 2 to 3 times a month you're meeting with your faculty member, and then 1 time a month you're actually there's some sort of evaluation where you have to do a code review or a presentation about your status. So that is some of the structure of the course. You will have to get in front of a group and be able to explain your work and present it. And a lot of students tell me at the beginning of Capstone, they dread this idea that they have to do public presentations. And then at the end of the Capstone experience, they talk about how much better they've gotten at it and how useful it has become, because in the real world, being able to stand in front of a group of people and show off your ideas is very important. I'm dumping my slides into the chat for anyone who wants them. All right, then, if you want to hang out and you have some specific questions for either the sponsors or the faculty, you are more than welcome to stay and we can talk. We can go ahead and stop the recording now. And